Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Stitch Sessions. Today we are working on a fun holiday themed project. It is the kitty square, and with Halloween coming up, I know a lot of you are looking for different and interesting ways to work in some of the theme into your projects or to create projects for this theme. So I thought this was really fun, especially for those of you that might have little ones that like to carry a blanket. Maybe you can create a few of these squares and create a blanket. Or if you have another baby on the way around the Halloween time, this could be a fun one to do. So I thought it would be fun to show you guys how I made the kitty cat square. So it's based off of a granny square. And we start off by using a circle to create the face. And I made my kitty cat a little bit chubbier. And then we eventually square off from the circle and to create that nice little square. And then I just like the contrast of adding that color. Now I did this one, it is black yarn. I'm not going to use black yarn because it doesn't show up very well on camera. So let's talk about the materials we're going to use. It's the Heartland yarn by Lion Brand. And in case you're wondering, the color is Canyonlands. Now I've used this yarn before. I haven't used it in a while, but it is just lovely. It's 100% acrylic and it's just soft and pliable and just beautiful. So I thought this would be a great color to work with, nice for fall, not just Halloween. So a lot of different things you can use it for. Now it is calling for a 6mm hook, but I'm actually going to use a 5.5mm hook for this project, also known as an I or a size 9. Okay, and I just felt that because I've used this before and it's quite relaxed, I just wanted a little bit more snugness in the stitches. So this is what I'm going to use to create the actual face of my cat. So I'm going to kind of do the contrast in colors differently. And then I'm going to use a little bit of this gray, which hopefully will actually show up better on camera than a black would, to do the background. Okay, and in case you're wondering, this is Impeccable by Loops and Threads. And actually this is quite a nice gray color. And the color is called Dark Charcoal. Okay, now you will not need more than this to create one square. But if you are creating a blanket, obviously you're going to want to pick up a few of these for the blanket. But in the meantime, let's get started. Oh, and don't forget, always make sure you have a trusty darning needle and a handy pair of scissors on hand so you can sew in your ends, snip off your yarn, and you're good to go. Okay, so we're going to start by creating the face of our cat first. So that is going to require us creating a circle. So to begin, we are going to start with a magic ring or a cinch circle. So you're just going to take your yarn and wrap it around your fingers. It's similar to a slip knot for those of you that are still a bit new. The difference is you just don't resolve it. You don't cinch it shut to create a knot. You just start off with your loop and you pull up a loop. And this is probably the trickiest part for anybody, especially when you're new, is this part here because it's all very wonky. So I just pulled up a loop and then I'm going to just chain one right away. And that basically secures my circle. Okay, and then I have a little tail there. I'm just going to pull that out. Now we are going to be using the double crochet stitch here. So we need to chain an additional 2 more chains. And that is going to give us the height of our stitch. Now the chain 3 will count as a double crochet. What we're going to do next is place another double crochet into the center of our ring here. So you're going to yarn over, insert, and place a double crochet like you normally would. Okay. Now what we want to do is we want to create a total of 12 double crochets into the center of our ring. So remember the chain 3 counts as 1. So you need to do 11 more double crochets. So go ahead and do that, and I will meet up with you when you have a total of 12 stitches. Okay, so I have my 12 double crochets here. Remember, the chain 3 counts as 1. So now what we're going to do is we're going to find the top of our chain 3 here. We're going to insert our hook and we're going to slip stitch to join. And round 1 is complete. Okay, just like that. For round 2, what we want to do is we want to chain 3 and right back into the same spot we slip stitched into, we're going to place a double crochet right back in there. So now we have 2 stitches coming out of 1, okay? And what we're going to do into each stitch all the way around is place 2 double crochets into each. So we are increasing the number of stitches with this round. Now what you want to be careful here is that is where we slip stitch to join, but it's so easy to think that this would be your next stitch, but it is not. It is this one right here, okay? And it's so easy to miss that, but you would notice that because at the end of round 2, you will have 24 stitches. So we are increasing by 12 stitches at the end of round 2. So there we go, right there. Okay, so we did the chain 3 counts as a double crochet and then a double crochet. So there's 2. And then into the next stitch, I'm just pulling it apart so you can see, there's 2 double crochets. So go ahead and do that, 2 into each stitch all the way around, and I'll meet you at the end of round 2. Okay, this is my 24th stitch, so come all the way around. And again, I'm going to find the top of that chain 3 and I'm going to slip stitch to join. Just like that. Okay, we're going to move on to round number 3. So round number 3, we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, and 3. And then we are going to go into the very next stitch. So we're not going to go back into that first stitch. We're going to go into the very next stitch, which remember is the one that's nestled right next to that chain 3. And here we are going to place 2 double crochets. So in round 2, we increased in every stitch, but for round 3, we are increasing in every second stitch. So our chain 3 counts as 1, and into the next stitch, we increase. That means we place 2 stitches into 1. In the next stitch, we're only going to place 1 double crochet. Okay, then in the next stitch, we place 2 double crochets. So your pattern will be 1, 2, 1, 2, all the way around. Okay, so we had 1, there's 2 in that one, 1 in this one, and 2 in that one. Continue to repeat that pattern all the way around, and at the end of round 3, you should now have 36 stitches. So what's happening is we're increasing the number of stitches with every round by 12. We had 12 in round 1, 24 in round 2, and at the end of round 3, you'll have 36. Okay, so I've completed my 36 stitches. Now again, I'm going to find the top of my chain 3, and I'm going to slip stitch to join. And we are just about there. We have one more round to do. Now, if you didn't want to make your kitty cat too fat, you could actually stop at round 3. But if you're going to follow along exactly with me, I happen to do 4 rounds. Okay, so we have one more round to go. And as usual, you're going to begin by chaining 3, 2, and 3. And this time we're going to start with our increase. So right away back into where we slip stitched, we're going to insert our hook and we're going to place another double crochet. Okay. And now what we're going to do is into each of the next 2 stitches, we're going to place 1 double crochet. So remember that first stitch right beside where we slip stitched can be tricky to see. So you place 1 double crochet, then you go into the next stitch and you place another double crochet. Okay, So our increase is there. We have 1, 1. Now into the next stitch, we're going to place our increase, which is 2 double crochets. So there's 1. And there is 2. Into the next one, we'll place 1. Okay. Into the next one, we'll place another 1. Just like that. Okay. So we have 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1. And that is what you're going to repeat all the way around until you get to the end of round 4, which you should then have 48 stitches. Now, if you do want to play around with the size of your face, make sure to check out my tutorial on how to crochet a circle, because I go over the theory behind creating circles. So that way you can size your cat face as large or as small as you like. I'll leave a link for it in the description box down below. In the meantime, repeat this pattern if you're following along exactly with me, and I'll meet you at the end of round 4. Okay, so I've completed 4 rounds. So my work is looking something like that. And I'm just gonna kind of do a light little comparison here. And it's sitting just a little bit larger than my other one. And that is because this yarn actually was slightly thinner. Even though it was a medium weight 4, it was just slightly on the thinner side. So this face is coming out to be just a little bit larger, but I'm still happy with it. So before we snip off here, we need to create our ears, okay? So what you're gonna do is you are going to slip stitch into the front loop of the next stitch. So the front loops, if you turn your work, you have the V's that face you here, okay? So this loop right here, that's called the front loop. That's the loop that's closest to you. The loop that's right there, that's the loop furthest away from you, okay? So we're gonna be slip stitching into the front loops. Now remember, we don't want to miss this stitch here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually going to slip stitch right into there, okay? So that's the one I'm gonna slip stitch into. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to chain 1, and I'm gonna go back into that same stitch, and I'm gonna single crochet, okay? And now I'm gonna stay in that same stitch, and I am going to do a half double crochet. Okay, so we're trying to create some height with our stitches. And don't worry, it's gonna stretch out like that. That's totally normal. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna move on to the next stitch, and again, into the front loop only. So I'm just gonna help it along there, just like that. And we're gonna place a double crochet. Okay, so there's 1. There's a double crochet. And now into that same stitch, we're going to place a triple crochet. Notice that I yarned over twice, okay? So a double crochet, you would just yarn over once. A triple, you're gonna yarn over a second time. So going back into that same loop, you're gonna pull up a loop, okay? In this case, you're gonna have 4 loops on your hook. You will pull through 2 with 3 loops remaining, and then you pull through the next 2 with 2 loops remaining, and you pull through 2 with only 1 remaining. So now you can see that my ear is really taking shape. Just to add a little bit more of a pointed finish to it, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna chain 1, and then we're going to slip stitch. See this right here? That's the original loop. You're gonna go back in there and pick up that other loop there, and we're gonna slip stitch into that. And this is what we call a picot, and it creates just a little bit of a point there, accentuated point, just like that, okay? And now we're still working into that stitch. We're gonna go back down and work a double crochet. So into that loop, double crochet, okay? So into the first stitch, we had slip stitched and single crocheted and half double crocheted. Into the second stitch, we did a double crochet, a triple, and a double. Now we're gonna go into the next stitch, okay? So it's right there. Again, working into the front loop, and we're gonna do a half double crochet. So we're gonna go back down again in the height of our stitch, okay? And pull through all of them. And then in the same loop, you'll place a single crochet. And then what we want to do is we want to go into the next stitch and slip stitch. Again, only into the front loops. Okay, and that is our first little ear. Okay, here we go. Now it's starting to look a little bit more like a cat. Okay, so now we need to create this second ear. So what we're going to do is we're going to slip stitch into the next 3 stitches, okay? Again, all into the front loop. So I'm going to pick up the next loop there. So that's 1. That's 2. And that is 3. So technically you will have had 4. Okay, so now we're going to create the second ear. So into the very next stitch, we need to find the next front loop. We're going to, insert our hook. You're going to slip stitch there and chain 1. And now back into that same loop, you're going to single crochet. So we're going to repeat exactly what we did in the other ear. Single crochet, then we'll half double crochet into that stitch. Okay, and now into the next front loop, you're going to do a double crochet. So we're still only picking up the front loops, and you'll know why shortly once we start squaring off our circle here. So we had a double crochet, so now we're going to do a triple crochet. So we're going to yarn over 2 times, back into that same loop. Okay, pull up a loop. You'll have 4 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through the first 2. Yarn over, pull through the second 2. And yarn over and pull through the last 2. Okay, and you can see that's the peak of our ear. Now you're going to chain 1. We're going to create that picot. And you're going to go back into that the top of that triple crochet there, that loop. And I like to pick up the next loop next to it. And we're going to slip stitch through all of those loops. Okay, so just like here, it just really gives a defined point to that ear. From here, we're going to go back down to a double crochet, still in that same stitch there. Okay, just like that. So we're decreasing the height of our stitch, and now we're going to move on to the next stitch into the front loop only, and we're going to place a half double crochet. So remember, we go up in height, and then we have to come back down. Okay, and lastly, we're going to do a single crochet into that same stitch. And now we want to go into the next stitch. Remember the front loop only. We want to slip stitch into that one. And in fact, I'm going to slip stitch into the very next one as well, just to give our ear a little anchoring. And we've completed our second ear. Okay, so there are your 2 ears. Now, if you want to play with the spacing, like some people might like the ears a little further apart, you can slip stitch a few more stitches over, but I'm pretty happy with keeping mine fairly close together. So I am now going to snip off my yarn. Leave a little bit of a tail there. Snip off my yarn. And you can just pull that through, just like that. And now is a good time to weave in that end. And you've got the basic cat face shape finished. At this point, if you wanted to, you can go ahead and just sew in the whiskers and the mouth and put on the ears. But I like doing that at the very end. I like getting the main structure done and then doing the finer little details here. So what I'm going to do is once I've woven in this end here, I'm going to start on taking our circular shape and squaring it off to create our backdrop or a background here. And that's where the square portion actually comes in. So you can see in the next round here, I changed colors, and this is where I gave this circle some corners, and that's what gives us the squared off look. So that's what we're gonna do now. I'll meet you back here in a moment when I've sewn in my end. Okay, so we know that our face has 48 stitches and a square has 4 sides. So you're gonna take the number of stitches you have and divide it by 4. So that's gonna give us 12 stitches per side. Okay, so that's the number we wanna keep in mind. And so every 12th stitch, we're going to create an increase or a corner. So what we're gonna do in this instance is we're gonna begin with a corner just under our first ear here. And if I take my other little kitty cat here, that, see where that space is? That's a corner. And there's the next corner and the corner. So this is a good way to kind of gauge where you'd like your corners to set up so you can create your square space. So that is where we're gonna begin here. So you wanna begin by placing a slip knot on your hook. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna find that first ear here to the right, and we are gonna start off by finding that stitch right there. See that stitch right there? And we are gonna go into the back loops only. So this is why when we did the ears, we were doing the front loops only, because we wanted to leave the back loops free to still be worked into to create the backdrop, which is the square for our cat. So you're gonna go into the back loop only here, and you are going to slip stitch to join. Bring that through. Now what we want to do is chain 6. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. This chain 6 will count as a triple crochet chain 2. So to initially create this squared off shape coming out of our circle here, we're going to use triple crochet increases in our corners, or to create our corners. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go back into that same stitch, and we are going to use a triple crochet. So that means we're going to yarn over twice. Now you've already done this when we did the ear. And you're going to go back into that same loop. And then you'll pull up the loop, and you'll resolve the triple crochet as usual. Pull through the first 2, and pull through the next 2, and pull through the next 2. Now I hope the gray is actually showing up a little bit better than what the black would have been. So there you go. So now you've got this V-like shape, triple crochet, chain 2, triple crochet. Okay, and that is our first corner. Now what we're going to do is into the next stitch, so you're going to have to pull your ear back here. You're going to pull your ear down so that you can see the back loops being exposed here. So there's the very next back loop, and into that one we're going to place an extended double crochet. So you're going to yarn over once only, insert into that back loop. I'm just trying to work over my tail as I go. Okay, so I'm going to go into that back loop, into this back loop here. And so for an extended double crochet, you'll pull a loop through, you'll yarn over it and only pull through 1 loop here. That still leaves you with 3 loops. Then you yarn over, pull through 2, and then yarn over and pull through the next 2. And we have a tutorial on the extended double crochet in our repertoire too, in case you want to check that out a little further. So the extended double crochet is just slightly taller than a double, but not quite as tall as a triple. Okay, so remember we have to build up our corners, whoops, because of our rounded shape here. So we've got to make up for that spacing. Now across the next 9 stitches, we are just going to work a regular double crochet. Okay, so you'll yarn over, find the next back loop, which is right there, and double crochet. And don't worry, that loop is going to stretch. That's totally normal. Okay, double, and then again into the next one. So you just have to kind of push those ears down so you can see where your loops are exposed. And the next double crochet. Okay, so that's the corner there. And now we're creating our first side. So go ahead and do those 9 double crochets, and then I'll meet up with you as we're getting closer to creating our next corner. Okay, so I've done my 9 double crochets, and now I'm getting ready to do my next corner very soon. So the next stitch, which is the 10th stitch here, is going to be an extended double crochet. So find the back loop and just pull through 1 loop first, then 2, and then 2. So we're building back up to doing a corner, okay? So the next stitch will be a corner stitch. So if I count this now, so we've got our triple 1, our extended is 2, then we have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So we now have finished our full side. Remember that each corner is going to get an extra stitch to create that corner, and I'll talk about that in a second. So let's create our second corner. We're still going to work into the back loops all the way around. So even though we reserve the back loops for going behind the ear, we want to keep the look consistent. So we will do the back loops all the way around. And what that does is it actually gives a little bit of a bordered edge to our face. And you'll see what I mean when we finish our first round of the squared off moment. So we're going in to create a corner. So we know we need to put a triple crochet, chain 2, triple crochet. So we will yarn over twice, go into the back loop, and place a triple crochet, chain 2, 1 and 2, and another triple crochet right into that same loop. Once, twice, 3 times. Okay, so if I just take out my work now and set down my cat here. So we've now finished our full side, and we've got a second corner in the works here. So it doesn't look like much yet, and it is still bending a little bit, but with consecutive rows or rounds, and of course with blocking, it'll work itself out as well. Okay, so this is how you're going to work each side. So we've just finished our corners. So every time you come out of a corner, the next stitch will be an extended double crochet. Remember, into the back loops. So we have once, twice, 3 times. So as we get close to a corner, we have an extended double crochet, then we do our triple, chain 2, triple, and coming out of a corner, we do an extended double crochet. We then have 9 stitches where we're going to place 1 double crochet. And that is what you're going to repeat for every side that you create. So you're going to do this another 3 times to give you your 4 sides. Okay, so just take this out so you can see. Now you can really see that there is a definite corner being formed there. Okay, so I'm going to leave you there. You're going to finish off your 9 double crochets, then an extended double crochet, then create a corner, triple, chain 2, triple. Then you have extended double crochet, another 9 doubles, extended double crochet, create your next corner, extended double crochet coming out of the corner, another 9 double crochets, and you should end up placing an extended double crochet in that last stitch before you get to the first corner we created. And that is where I'm going to meet up with you to finish up the first round of our squared motif. I know that sounds funny, but we do call them rounds even though we're creating a square. All right, I'll leave you to it, and I'll meet you back here in a minute. Okay, and I've just finished my last side here. So I've done an extended double crochet in the very last stitch, and now I've got that chain 6. So I'm just going to find the top of the 4th chain, because remember, this is supposed to represent a triple crochet. So I have 1, 2, 3, and 4, and I'll insert my hook and I'll slip stitch. Okay, so our first round of the square shape is complete. Now, it might look still a bit wonky to you because there's still going to be a slight curvature here, but we're going to fix that as we do subsequent rounds. So let's move on to round 2 of our square. And I know it sounds silly. I'm calling it rounds, but that is what we call it. So we've just completed round 1 of our squared off palette, I'll call it. Now we're going on to round 2. And what I like to do is I actually like to slip stitch again into the space. So we're going to slip stitch into that space. And this time we're going to go back down to just working double crochets for all of your stitches now. So we're actually going to chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this will count as a double crochet and chain 2. The other difference you're going to find in this round is that we're going to place 2 stitches spacer and 2 stitches, whereas previously we had only done 1 stitch. So like I said, this counts as a double crochet chain 2, and now we're going to place 2 double crochets into this chain space. So you have 1, oops, and you have 2. Okay, so you have something that looks like that. Now this side only has 1, I know, but we usually finish that when we come back around at the end. Now what we're going to do is we're simply going to place 1 double crochet into each stitch until we get to the next corner. But remember, anytime we're working in chain spaces, it's very easy to miss this very first stitch here because sometimes it gets hidden. So make sure to find that stitch so that your stitch count remains nice and even. Okay, just like that. And it's a little easier for this round because now we've already got our squared off shape and we've got stitches nice and easy to see. And we're working into the full stitch here, not the loops. We've got double crochets in each. Okay, so that's what you're going to do until you get to your last stitch here, and I'll meet you in the next corner. Okay, so I've done 1 double crochet into each all the way across. You can see now it's actually starting to even out a little bit from that curved shape there. So we've come to our corner, and this is what you're going to do in all subsequent corners. You are going to place 2 double crochets. So there's 1 and 2. Then you'll chain 2 to form your corner space and go back in again into that space and place another 2 double crochets. Okay, so you can really see the defined corner there. And then you are going to proceed. Remember, don't miss that first stitch. And you're going to proceed to place 1 double crochet into each stitch again all the way across. So pretty easy for this round. It's usually that first round coming out of your circle shape that can be a little tricky, but the squared portion becomes much easier as you continue further rounds. Okay, so you're going to finish that all the way down there. So you can definitely see the squares taking shape. So for round 2 of our square, we are now going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 stitches per side. This means that at the end of round 2, you should have a total of 68 stitches. Now we don't count the chain 2s. We're just counting the stitches in between each of these spaces, okay? And by the way, I'm not sure if I mentioned it, but if I didn't, I'll also make sure I put a marker up there on the screen. At the end of the first round, you will have a total of 52 stitches because remember, we ended up doing 13 stitches per side. So you can see we're increasing the number of stitches per side by 4 stitches each round, okay? So round 1, you ended up having 52 stitches. Round 2 of your square, you're going to end up having 68 stitches. Okay, so go ahead and finish round 2, and I'll meet you at the end because that is when we're going to introduce our accent color here. Okay. Okay, so I've come to the end of my 4th side. Remember, we already had that chain 5 here, so that means we need to have 1 more double crochet. So remember, it's 2 double crochets in the corner, right? So we're going to go into that space, into the corner space, and do a double crochet. And then we count up to the third chain from the bottom, which is right there, and we slip stitch to join. And this completes round 2 of our square. Okay, so your work is now looking something like this. And actually, I really like that color combination. So now we need to get ready to do that little accent color. So when I did the lighter background, I made the black the accent color. So for now, what we're going to do is we are just going to snip our yarn and fasten off. And I'll weave that in as I go. And I'm going to bring my other color back in. It's called the Canyonlands. It's such a unique name. It's like kind of like a browny yellow, not really a yellow. It's got yellow tones in it. I'm sure you can see it on camera, but yeah, it's kind of an interesting color. It's like browns, yellows with a bit of orange in there. So what we're going to do now is because we're going to be working single crochets for this round, I'm not actually going to start with a slip knot on my hook. And in fact, I'm going to work over my short tail here. So I'm just going to insert my hook into this corner space, and I'm going to place a loop on my hook here, and I'm just going to pull it up so it's still pretty loose. And then I'm going to, just going to trap it in there, and I'm going to chain 1. Now, I know it probably doesn't feel like it to you, but it is pretty secure. And then I'm going to continue to work over both of those tails as I go along. So there we go. So I've got my chain 1 in there. Now I'm going to go back into this same space, and I'm going to single crochet. Just like that. So I have 1 single crochet, and now I'm going to chain 2 because we are still creating a corner. And then I'm going to go back into this space and place 2 more single crochets. So we're still increasing by 4 stitches on each side every time we create a corner. Okay, so we've placed a single crochet, a chain 2 right there, and 2 single crochets. And when we come all the way back around, I will place the second single crochet there in the corner. So for now, it's pretty straightforward, just like we did with the double crochets. And what we're going to do is we're going to find the next stitch. Remember, this one gets snuggled in here, so we want to push your stitches aside. And there you go. There it is. So you're going to insert your hook and single crochet. So in this round, it's just single crochets. And it's 1 single crochet into each stitch. Now I like to work over my tails. If that throws you off a little bit, you can just set your tails aside and weave them in at the end. But I like to try and weave mine in as I go along. So I'm just doing a few here so you guys can see. And I'm going to do 1 more. Okay, so you can see it creates a really nice contrast. Wow, I really like that color combination. Okay, pretty straightforward. 1 single crochet into each. I'll meet you in this next full corner just to kind of take you through going around the bend. So finish off those stitches and I'll see you back here in a minute. Okay, so I've come across, I'm now in my first corner here, my first full corner. So I'm going to insert into the corner space 2 single crochets. So there's 1, back into the space, there's 2. Then I'm going to chain 2 to really create that corner shape. And I'm going to go back into that same space and place another 2 single crochets. So there's 1 and there's 2. There we go. Now you can see the full effect of that corner. Okay, and then we continue on. Remember, make sure that this one doesn't get left behind. 1 stitch into each stitch, and in every corner, it's 2 single crochets, chain 2, 2 single crochets, and you continue on. Okay, just like that. So you're going to repeat that for the other 3 sides, down here, up, up, and then I'm going to meet up with you at the end again, just to guide you through fastening off. Again, this is more, when I meet you at the end and guide you through the end, it's always more for the beginner crocheters. Those of you that are more experienced, obviously, you know how to get to the end, snip off, weave your ends in, and then you are ready to go. Either way, I'll meet you guys at the end of this round, which is round number 3. And by the way, on each side, you should now end up having 21 stitches, and including your extra stitches in the corners. So at the end of round 3, this accent color, you should have 84 stitches in total, okay? Okay, I'm coming up to the end of my 4th side. So I just need to place, remember we only placed 1 single crochet in here. So I need to go into that corner space, place a single crochet, and then I'm going to find the top of that first single, which is right there, and I'm going to slip stitch to join my yarn. And that completes round 3. I just want to make sure there's my chain 2. Whoops. So I'm going to snip my yarn and fasten off. Just like that. Look at how good that contrast is. Now, if you wanted to, you could simply leave your square like this with the yellow accent on the outside. But I'm going to add one more layer here. So we're going to bring back our charcoal color, and we are going to add the final touch, the final border to our square. Okay, so you're going to start by placing a slip knot on your hook. And instead of starting in this corner, I'm going to start over here. I don't like to start in the same corner where there have been a lot of knots, because I just find it gets really thick in that corner. So I like starting in a different corner and then working my way over that. So we're going to start in this bottom corner, and we want to find our chain 2 space, which is right there. And we're going to slip stitch to join, and we're going to go back up to using double crochet stitches. So I'm going to slip stitch, and then I'm going to chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And remember, this is going to count as a double crochet and a chain 2. Okay, so I'm going to go back into that same space now, and I'm going to insert my hook and place a double crochet. Now for this final row, to create our corner, I'm only going to place 1 double crochet, chain 2, and 1 double crochet. Because we use single crochets in the last row, our chain space is a little bit on the snug side, and I want to make sure it sits nicely. So only 1 of each in the corner, and then we move out of the corner. So this is where you may want to stretch your work a little bit so you can see where your stitches are. So there's my very first stitch there. And I'm going to place a double crochet in there. Okay, and I'm just going to work over that tail like I like to do. And I'm going to place a double crochet. Okay, and then basically you're going to just continue placing 1 double crochet into each stitch. Pretty straightforward. So once you create the actual squared off shaping to your motif, all subsequent rows are fairly easy to do after that. Okay, I'm going to do a few here just so that you can get a feel for the contrast. Okay, just like that. So it is a subtle accent here, so you can see that the charcoal really blends in. If you wanted to, you could work it in the back loops only, if you wanted your yellow portion to stand out a bit more. Now with this project, I actually went into the full stitch. But the interesting thing is, because the background color is light and the accent color was dark here, I feel like that accent color really stands out very nicely. On this one, however, it becomes a bit more subtle. So I'm going to leave it up to you. I think I actually might go back and go into the back loops only. In any case, it still will be 1 stitch into each stitch until you get to the corner, and I'll meet you up again as usual in that first full corner together. Okay, so I'm coming into my corner space here. Just gonna push that tail down. And remember not to mix up your slip knot with your stitch. So that right there is the knot, but the stitch is right there. So I still need to work into the back loop there. And now I'm just gonna push aside that tail. And then I've got the back loop of the next stitch there. Okay, so there you go. You can really see working in the back loops really brought out that accent color. So we now have 23 stitches going across, okay? So now we're gonna work into the corner here again, and we're gonna place 1 double crochet into the space. So we go right into the space, double crochet, chain 2, and double crochet back into that space there. Oops. Okay, just like that. Okay, so you're now gonna come around the bend, continue the same way, 1 stitch into each, working into the back loops only. In my case, I am working into the back loops only. And then into the corner, we're only doing 1 double crochet, chain 2, 1 double crochet. 1 into each, back loops only, 1 double crochet, chain 2, 1 double crochet. You're gonna finish that last side. And then we will have completed our actual cat square. So then the last thing to do will be to add the details for our face. So I'll meet you back here when we're ready to do that. Okay, I'm at the very end here, so I want to count up these. This is my chain 5 here. I want to count up my 3 chains, 1, 2, and 3. And I'm going to insert my hook so I can slip stitch to join. And I am finished with my square. So I'm going to snip off, and we are done. So I have to weave in my end there. Okay, so now there we have it. Look at how great that looks. I love it. So each side in the final round, which is round 4, will have 23 stitches in total. So remember, in the last round in the corners, we only placed 1 double crochet, chain 2, 1 double crochet. So we're only increasing by 2 stitches for each corner, for each side, unlike previous rounds where we're increasing 4 stitches. So in total, for the final round, I have 92 stitches. That's 23 stitches per side. So our black cat, or orange cat in this case, is complete. So now what we're gonna do is the final touches, and that is to create our face. Now, if you wanted to, you could leave it without a face. Like if you just like the idea of having the silhouette, that looks really good too. I mean, most people can figure out that is a cat. Now you can actually see that this one is sitting slightly larger than this one. And as always, it's just slightly different textures will create different sizes. Like this is the Handicrafter cotton, so it's a little bit on the thicker, but it stitches tighter, so it's going to cinch in. And also this yarn, the black yarn I used to create this cat, which I explained earlier, is actually a finer yarn, even though it's still considered a medium weight 4. So you can really see the difference that the fiber weight makes in creating your square. But there you go. There is the cat square complete. Now on to the final touches. What I would recommend too is, if you're going to do this for a blanket, you might want to sew the tips of these ears down so they stay nicely in place. That is what I did for this one here. I just felt it just kind of kept it in place more. So a little recommendation there. Okay, we're going to start off with our little face details here. I generally like to start with the eyes. Some people might like to start with the nose because it's smack dab in the center. And as you can see, it's nothing exact or perfect, I guess I would say. You can see the stitching and things like that. And for me, that's kind of the point. I wanted it to look very handmade. So I'm starting with the eyes, and we're essentially just going to create 2 circles for the eyes. So I've already done one here. Now, I don't believe I mentioned this at the beginning of the video, but for the eyes and the details, I'm using a little bit of this leftover cotton yarn I have. This is the Aunt Lydia's fashion yarn, I believe. You will have remembered this yarn from the pencil case tutorial, as well as the coffee cozy tutorial. So you will have seen this yarn quite a bit. This is what I've got left. So, but you can of course do it in the black yarn. It's going to give you a little bit of a larger eye, totally up to you. But I'm going to show you how I did it with the Aunt Lydia's thin yarn. And so you're going to create 2 of these circles for your eyes. So it's essentially just crocheting 1 round of a circle. So I'm going to take you through that right now. Okay, so we're going to start this with a cinch circle, okay? And I'm going to leave a tail longer than I normally would because I'm also going to use that for sewing in my eye there. So I created a loop, and instead of picking up another loop to make a knot, I'm just going to pull that loop through and just secure it there like that. So that is my cinch circle there. And then from here, this is the part that gets people frustrated because it feels wonky. From here, I'm going to chain 1 to secure my circle. And there we go. I'm going to take that tail out of the way. And we're going to work a series of single crochets. So I'm going to chain 1 again, and I'm going to go back inside this circle, and I'm going to pull up a loop to create a single crochet. And again, it gets funny there because there's nothing really to hold on to. So there's 1 single crochet. I want to do a total of 6. So I'm going to do this 5 more times into the circle. So there's 2, 3, 4, and 5, and 1 more gives us 6. Okay, so you have something that looks like that. Now all you're going to do is this tail here, you're going to just take it and pull, and you can see your circle is starting to cinch in. That's why they call it a cinch circle. So you pull it tightly so you can see that everything is nice and snug. And now what you want to do is you want to find the top of that first single crochet. So just bring it a little closer here. So see how your stitches go around? So I'm going to find that first stitch I created, and I'm just going to slip stitch to join into that stitch. I'm going to have to help it along there. So pull it through, and then I'll pull it through. And that is it. That is as large as I want my eye to be. Now, if you wanted your eye to be a little bit larger and you're using this yarn, you might want to do a second round, but I'm pretty much happy with that the way it is. So I will also snip off my yarn here. And, oops, just want to tie that off, just like that. Okay, so now I have 2 eyes. So I'm going to get my kitty cat back here. And now I just want to work out where I want to place these eyes. Now, keep in mind that the center of your face, or the center of the circle, that's generally where I'm going to work my nose into. So if you saw this one here, hopefully you can see that. See, the tip of my nose comes out of that. So that's basically how I'm going to gauge how to balance the features on my face here. So I went up 1, 2, 3. In the 3rd round is where I placed my eyes. So I think that's exactly where I'm going to go here with this one. So this is the 1st round, 2nd round, and there's the 3rd round. So I want to gauge somewhere based on where my ears are. Now you can make your kitty cat a little bit off center. You can make him look goofy if you want. Totally up to you. So I'm just going to kind of gauge it here. There's one eye. And there's the other eye. And yeah, actually, I kind of like that. These eyes are a little closer together than the other cat, but I like that. By the way, you don't actually have to crochet these. You can use buttons if you prefer. So that's the beauty of creating your own design. You can do whatever you like. I think I like mine sitting like this. So now I'm going to take you through how I'm going to sew it onto my face. And by the way, when I meant sew onto my face, I meant my cat face, not my actual face. So I've got my eye here and I've threaded up my yarn. If it's easier for you, I would recommend pinning this in place, but I'm one not always to use pins, so totally up to you. And what you want to do is just go through each loop around the edge of your circle. So I'm just going to insert there and just push it through to the back side. Okay, whoops, that's the other tail. We'll push that to the back afterwards. Okay, I'm not too worried about it being super pretty in the back. This is the back side of the motif, so I'm not going to worry too much about keeping it hidden. My main thing is the front at this point. So I'm just going to go along the edge of that circle. I'm just going to try to poke it in through the front. So see, I'm going to go along the edge just to sew in and secure that eye down. So now I'm going to go into the next one there. I want to make sure I definitely catch a loop here instead of something to sew into, and then push it through there. Okay, and that's it. It's pretty straightforward. You're just going to go in and out. Now when I push it forward, I want to come up the next loop here. There we go. Just like that. And then I'll find the next loop and go in through the back. There we go. And that's it. And now I'm going to push this one to the back. Pretty straightforward, guys, right? Like nothing too insane. And I'm just going to use this to give the bottom here a little extra security. Especially if you're going to use this like on a scarf for a child or something like that, you probably want to make sure that these are secured nicely. There we go. My eye is on, right? So now I've got these two longer tails. So what I would do is just knot them, and I might even weave them in back and forth a little bit and then snip them off, and you're done. So you will now take the second eye and you will do the same thing. I actually really like how that looks. It looks a little bit different. Okay, so do both of your eyes, and then I'm going to meet back up with you to talk about the nose and the whiskers and all that kind of stuff. It's similar but slightly different. Okay, so there are my eyes sewn in, and I've decided to actually go back to my dark yarn for the nose and the whiskers. I just feel like it's just got a little bit more substance to it. So what we're going to do is we're going to work in from the back through the front, and you just want to poke your, once you've woven it through. So I've got about, I don't know, about 12 inches or so here. And you just want to poke your darning needle in from the back up through the center, like that. Okay, we just want to create a little kind of a V-like shape or an upside down triangle. So I'm going to kind of just gauge where my eyes are there and bring my needle in through there, just nice and snug, nothing too tight. Okay, and then I'm going to come back in through the center again, like that. Just going to gauge, and now I want to gauge where I want my other, maybe somewhere around here, to create that little triangular shape. You might even just want to leave it like this and then start to do the whiskers from there. If you want to fill in the shape, you would just continue coming in through the center, like that. Okay, and now I would maybe go back, I would go up through the top here. Just like that, yeah. And so now I would just continue repeating this until I filled in my space here. So now I might go over this way. I'm trying to pick up some loops here. Like that. See, and you can see it slowly starting to fill in. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep doing that until I've got all this space filled in here. Okay, so you're just going to keep going until you're happy with the shape. In this case, I went a couple of times up and then I went across. Okay, so do your nose however you like. And the technique for working the whiskers is exactly the same way. You want to come in through the back and start creating your shape. So I would recommend starting with the first whisker to the side, go out the back, come in, and then go up, down, come in again. So that's why you always want to start with like a little center point there and then dip down. And then I just made the mouth really nice and easy so you can see that there. I just kind of went down and across. Or you don't even have to do that. You could simply just do whiskers. So that's totally up to you. So I'm going to go ahead and finish the rest of my face here, and then we can compare notes on our final black cat square, or in this case, my little tabby here. Okay, guys, so my black cat motif is complete. It doesn't actually look like very much of a scary black cat in comparison to this one. This one looks a little bit more Halloweenish, but I still think it came out really, really cute. So here is my really sweet, cute cat, and here is my slightly less cute, a little bit, I would like to think it's a little bit more of a scarier cat for Halloween, but that's my attempt. But I hope that you found this really fun and easy to do and to create. And maybe you have a little one you're making this for. Maybe you're making this for yourself. If you have any questions, as always, pop me a comment in the comment box down below, or you can reach me directly at info@crochetcrafty.com and come and visit me over at crochetcrafty.com. We've got all kinds of interesting things happening over on the website there. And you can also find me on Instagram and Facebook at The Stitch Sessions. Let me know what colors you guys are doing your cats in. As always, if you are new here, I invite you to subscribe to the channel. Come hang out with me every Wednesday for a brand new tutorial and a lot of other fun stuff on the go. And if you really like this tutorial, make sure to give me a thumbs up and I'll make more like these. It just helps me know that I'm on the right track with the types of projects that you guys want to see. So in the meantime, have an amazing day. Happy Halloween crocheting. Take good care of yourselves, and I'll see you guys in the next session. Bye-bye.